Nigeria, as Africa's biggest economy and one of the largest youth populations, is well positioned to develop a strong digital economy. This was according to the Nigeria Digital Economy Diagnostic Report published back in 2019. The transformational impact of this on Nigeria is huge. However, the country needs to focus on fast-tracking 5 fundamental pillars of a digital economy, which was digital infrastructure, digital platforms, digital financial services, digital skills, and digital entrepreneurship. Today, Nigeria's Digital Economic Summit 2022 was held in Abuja, and my guest, Lanre Osibona, Senior Special Assistant on Technology to the President for 2015 to 2020, was there. And he joins me now for a discussion on the summit. Good evening. Thanks for coming through, Lanre.
Hello, good evening, and thanks for having me, Boston. It's a pleasure to be here.
Good evening. Thank you so much. Tell me a bit about this Digital Economic Summit held today in Abuja with Mr. Vice President in attendance.
Oh, yes, thank you. And just to mention that, yes, this is a summit platform that we had created as part of advocacy and deepening the engagement in order for us to be able to build an opportunity in a tech ecosystem that we know will open up huge opportunities for the many young population that we have. I think that's the strength of our country. Now, having come back into the private sector since 2020, beginning of 2020, we've, even during the COVID period, we've been fully engaged. And I think, in fact, the silver lining of the COVID is the adoption, quick adoption, and it catalyzed the journey on the digital transformation. We still have a long way to go. And this is reason we have a platform like the Nigerian Digital Economy Summit, where public and private sectors gather and discuss with the hope to connect and collaborate and hopefully create success that will birth opportunity for prosperity. I think the democratization of opportunities that's been brought about by technology allows so much gains if we can organize ourselves and be intentional about the direction of this path, especially on the back of the evolution of the internet. There's all new technologies.
Larry,
where it would.
Yes. So how much has Nigeria achieved in terms of digital economy? What more can be done? Give me a bit of a progress report.
I think we do still have quite a long way to go. The odds are stacked against us if we complacent and we do not take charge and take hold. One aspect that is great and that excites myself and excites a whole lot of people is the success that we've seen with the startup ecosystem. Having said that, I think we mustn't rest on our oars. I think what that signifies is competence and ability for us to build successful companies, because you can't argue the fact that the startups that have become unicorns are the ones that are raising tremendous amount of money are all Nigerian indigenous people, and they build these corporate organizations. However, it goes beyond that. We need to deepen counterpart funding in that space. We need to look at how do we expand these opportunities and how do we build digital enterprises that can compete. I always say, whilst it's painful, the old challenge that we have with the devaluation of our currency, but there's a silver lining to this, and it's in the opportunity to export software services and software solutions and IT services. We've seen a glimpse of that, but we still have a lot of way to go.
Okay.
If you look at some of the conversations that were had today and the points that were raised, especially around the talents that we're losing to developed markets, I think while it's scary and worrisome, but it also creates opportunities for developing a pipeline for these development talents that can provide remote work that can be done from within Nigeria, and for the ones that want to go abroad, can go abroad.
Yeah, but again, we should be worrying that we've spent time and resources to build these skills and professionals, but we're losing them. What are the key factors behind this migration of talents in digital economy that are just emerging in Nigeria, and we're the icon of the world, we're the poster boy when it comes to sub-Saharan Africa, but now we're losing them?
Indeed, indeed. And I will share an analogy to this, but let me just quickly say that the more reason, I mean, the focus of the subject today was very much around how do we take charge. There's certain things we can't control, but we can take charge of how it is done. Okay. Just watching and burying our heads in the sand is not going to solve the problem. You can't deprive young, enterprising people that want to go abroad and for greener pastures. However, we can build a business around it. We can deepen we have huge, humongous number of young people and growing. So we need to equally make that, in fact, you can look at it as the new resource that we have. Just like, crude oil is a resource with all due respect. Intellectual property is a huge resource that we must look at how do we make the most of it. And it's in taking charge of this process that we are able to better build upon it in the future. And this is played out in other countries, if you look at even China or India, whereby there's a connection between the host nation where they're going to and the
country back home,
indigenous countries, where the country back home. But we must take charge of that, and that's why really we must organize ourselves. We must ensure that we build businesses that creates a platform for skilled workforce that have gone to diaspora to want to come back and reinvest in because listen, the world has come together. We've been talking about, people have used the term global village, world coming together. It is indeed coming together, and it's competitive.
Yes.
The countries that are attracting our young folks is because they want to compete, and the workforce of the future is the young people, without a shadow of a doubt.
One pillar of the digital economy that seems to be running ahead of the others is the digital financial services sector. It looks like that's one area we're doing extremely much better than others. So what are there key issues around this digital financial services sector? Sometimes we've seen a bit of what you call face-off between certain authorities and institutions within this space. What has been done at the government level to make sure everybody's on the same page, because we're working for the same goal, as it were?
Indeed. I mean, that's our poster child, the fintech space. And it's exciting to see. I mean, there are questions to be asked. Who wants these companies? Who wants this unicorn? These are questions we must ask ourselves. At the moment, it appears to me these are companies owned by international bodies. Yes, they're trading in Nigeria, but how much of ownership are the indigenous people or owning of this new business enterprise? I'd like to touch on ways that we think, some of the things that that came out in the conversation and that we're going to be proposing is how do we, again, it goes back to the old counterpart funding. How do we create opportunities? How do we bring in high net worth individuals into this conversation? How do we create opportunities that the average Nigerian is able to invest in these new growing businesses? It's difficult for someone to go and put 100,000 naira into buying, for example, a flutter wave. However, imagine a fund is listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. That is, just assume, call it innovation fund or something. And it allows for you, if you have 100,000 naira, you're able to buy into that innovation fund, which invests across board at all the different startups. And I think what we've seen with the young populace in cryptocurrency exchange and transactions shows there is wealth in the hands of the young people, and it creates an opportunity for them to invest and be able to benefit. And that's one way that we can create a counterpart funding, in addition to bringing high net worth individuals to the table and be a part of this process, because that's one area that we must look at.
Okay, Mr. Vice President today spoke that said the central bank should refocus on digital fintech and all of that. What was Mr. Vice President what was he talking about?
So I think, you cannot take away from CBN. CBN was fully represented the conversation today, you cannot take away from the CBN the fact that they are also, associated with the success of the fintech space, whatever anyone might say. It's a tricky situation for a central bank to try and, in a very sensitive sector, to try and innovate and keep abreast of development. And these developments are happening rapidly. So they've had to be very cautious. But when you ask yourself, it's changing so fast. And the central banks, it really has to reinvent itself. And it's not just Nigerian central bank, it's a central bank all across the world. Because as the space is changing, the challenges are real. And I think it's a reawakening also to the traditional banking sector. And they've tried to hold the future for quite a while. And the cookies is crumbling all around. So we must stay with evolution. We must stay with innovation. We have to keep abreast. We have to be engaging. I think the CBN has had quite a big beating, but here listening to CBN today, listening to the fact that they are willing to collaborate, they're willing to continue to work on some of the achievements they've had. Of course, they have tried to hold back, but also if you look across the global world, all central banks have been cautious. But it's a place for the brave. But I think we have to be deliberate. Listen, we need to be a global. The theme of today is how do we become a global leader in this sector?
I love that.
That's where the focus is. So we all have to be deliberate. We have to be intentional in how we collaborate as public-private sector to win on this competition.
I appreciate that. Thank you for speaking with us tonight, and we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Lanre Osibona, Senior Special Assistant on Technology at the Presidency 2015-2020 and the CEO of Foresight Group.